What is up? This is Max Shonen, and I wanted to go over the 5 biggest buffs and the 5 biggest nerfs coming to Civ 7. This comes after playtesting the new Civilization 7 workshop build of Civ 7, and so I do need to preface that all of these buffs and all of these nerfs are more vibe buffs and nerfs to the mechanics of the game. These are not pointing out which specific civ or building got buffed or nerfed. Since everything in this build is subject to change, this is much more of my perspective on where I see Firaxis taking Civ 7. So without out of the way, in no particular order, buff number 1 goes to Specialists. You will hear Specialists being talked about a lot in the new build of Civ 7, and for good reason. Specialists are one of the main mechanics Firaxis wants you to be interacting with, mainly in the exploration and modern age, and they have been buffed, now receiving 100% of the adjacency from the buildings beneath them, buffed from the previous 50%. However, they do not receive any base yields. This makes them much more impactful at certain points in the game and makes adjacencies extremely important. Having a +5 or even a +6 adjacency is very impactful. Specialists now cost more, but you reap more rewards, especially with some very powerful policy cards to go along with them. Moving on to nerf number 1 in spam. Basically, anything you can spam in the previous build is under fire, with the main culprit being unique improvements. Unique improvements have been changed to now have a scaling cost associated with them, meaning if you build the same unique improvement in the same city, it will progressively become more and more expensive. This makes unique improvements eventually not worth it, since they will become so outrageously expensive. This is a self-balancing mechanic and is similar to the building production modifier implemented in previous patches by Firaxis, where buildings scale in production from the number of cities and other buildings the player already has. So Firaxis is trying to get rid of some of the spammy things in the game, whether that be unique improvements, buildings, army commanders, etc., by implementing these self-balancing mechanics. Moving on to buff number 2, going right along with buff number 1, but important enough to separate, is wonders. With Specialists now receiving 100% of the adjacency of the buildings underneath, adjacencies have become incredibly important. And how do you get adjacencies? By building wonders. Like I said previously, having a +5 or even if you can a +6 adjacency benefits the player much more than it previously did, and you need wonders to get those adjacencies. The floor for every wonder has been massively increased. If you could build a wonder that gave absolutely 0 benefit but still gave adjacencies, it might be worth it to build. And now, not a single wonder in the game does nothing. They all provide adjacencies for your specialists. The actual benefit you get from building the wonder sometimes feels like only half the benefit. And when evaluating which wonders are better than others, placement requirements and being able to reliably place them next to your buildings is something you definitely need to consider. Moving on to nerf number 2 is attribute points. This one is very simple, you just get less. You get way less attribute points than you previously did. During the age transition, you can no longer purchase lots of attribute points, meaning you will no longer be able to easily get some of the powerful bonuses that are deep into the attribute trees. This makes it so when you actually get attribute points, it feels much more impactful, which is also a slight bonus to certain wonders. The attribute trees themselves did not change. However, I would not be surprised if Firaxis buffed some of the bonuses deeper in the attribute trees in later patches, since it is harder to get those bonuses, and since Firaxis previously nerfed those bonuses into the ground, since it was previously so easy to get those bonuses. But Moving on to buff number 3 is every single modern age civ and every single exploration age civ. Civ is a game of opportunity cost, and the opportunity cost of any modern age civ in the previous build was practically 0. It didn't matter what modern age civ you chose, you could have had a civ with 0 bonuses, and your modern age experience would have been practically the same. This is no longer the case, since now you can play any civ in any age. Some civs have been scaled down or scaled up depending on what age you are in. This is probably the change most people are excited about, and after playing it, I find it to be a great change. The main fear when doing this and bringing a modern age civ to the antiquity age is maybe it would feel jarring. However, all the civs were already created with the game mechanics in mind. For instance, America previously wanted all the resources in the modern age and got bonuses for doing so. And now in the new build, when playing America in the antiquity age, they want all the resources and they get bonuses for doing so. Lots of these changes seem seamless, and it feels more like these civs have been unlocked in the previous ages rather than being added to the previous ages. And for accessibility purposes, a massive buff to any modern age civ, and to a lesser extent, any exploration age civ. Now moving on to nerf number 3 in happiness. Now, it is a little weird calling it a nerf, but happiness is now more important and harder to come by. Happiness is a fuel for specialists. Yes, everything leads back to specialists, but since specialists now cost more happiness and the happiness penalty has been increased, staying happy while trying to maximize specialists is a balancing act. Specialists cost more happiness. You need more happiness to not only keep your cities happy, but to unlock powerful policy cards with celebrations that make your specialists stronger. But those specialists are sucking up the happiness you need to unlock those policy cards. And now you start to see the tug and pull, and it is much more noticeable in this new build. And for that, happiness is nerf number 3, but moving on to buff number 4, I wanted to choose one of the victory paths, and if any victory path got buffed, it would definitely be the economic victory path. Previously, the economic victory path was rather tedious and definitely the slowest of any of the win conditions. With the new build, it is clear Firaxis has made a conscious effort to try and balance the victory conditions, making them all equally viable. Now, I would not say that the victory conditions in the workshop build are going to be the exact same as they are in the build that actually comes out, and I would actually be shocked if they are not tweaked in some way. But all the victory conditions do seem much more balanced, and with each victory condition in the workshop being a culmination of little points earned in a specific ways across the game, whether that being earning 6 points of tourism for a wonder to achieve a culture victory, or getting a certain amount of points for each gold building in an economic victory, the amount of points earned for each specific achievement can easily be changed in future patches to balance the victory paths. And so, since economic victory path was the worst previously, it got the biggest buff. But moving on to nerf number 4 is early age cheese. Now, what do I mean when I say early age cheese? I am talking about trying to roll over certain things from one age to another in order to try to get a huge head start in the exploration age or in the modern age. This has been nerfed in a couple different ways. One of the previous best ways of doing this was with unique improvements, which I have already gone over the nerf for that, but it is not just that. Since your specialists have no base yields, you will most likely need to build buildings of that specific era to start earning yields off of those specialists. This means you will lose a lot of yields going from one age to another. These changes, plus a few others, drastically slows down the start of the exploration and modern ages. This is actually the change I have enjoyed the most, actually having time to enjoy the mechanics of the exploration and the modern age instead of just trying to roll over as much progress as possible is a very nice change, and it is clear Firaxis is trying to remove as much early age cheese as possible. But moving on to buff number 5 is all the unique improvements, buildings, and units in the game. The new syncretism mechanic allows civs that are being played outside of their respective ages to unlock one of a selection of unique improvements, building, and units. This makes every unique improvement, building, and unit much more accessible to a lot of different civs. This can create some pretty unique combos. For instance, you are able to get certain unique improvements with Xerxes with any of the modern or exploration age civs. This opens up a ton of different possibilities, and for the unique improvements, buildings, and units being more readily available in more games, they receive buff number 5. And lastly, nerf number 5 goes to city-states. I think it would be wrong not to mention city-states have received another slight nerf in the workshop build, specifically with the +4 food buildings bonus from growth city-states no longer applying to workshop buildings, meaning it will no longer apply to granaries and fishing quays. Also, with the +1 science, culture, gold, etc. on workshop buildings bonus, that bonus has been split up with each yield applying to only certain workshop buildings. Now, these changes are rather specific, which I said I didn't want to get too specific in the intro to this video, but with city-states being the best way to play Civ 7, I think Firaxis is still trying to get them just right, which includes a slight nerf here. However, city-states are still definitely the best way to play wide Civ 7. And there are my 5 biggest buffs and nerfs to the workshop build of Civ 7. All in all, specialists are more important, spam is harder, wonders and adjacencies are huge, you get less attribute points, you can now play modern and exploration age civs in any age, happiness is less abundant and more important, all victory conditions are getting balanced, early exploration and early modern ages have been slowed, you can now get any unique improvement, building, or unit with a ton of different combos, and city-states are getting another slight nerf. If you are still watching, I appreciate it. Have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye.